Hey, GM. I'm Chuck. I'm here with Victor. We are Developer DAO's fundraising operators. We're here to help Developer DAO members raise money for your projects. Can you hear me now? All right, cool. Good morning. I'm Chuck. I'm here with Victor. We're Developer DAO's fundraising operators. We're here to help Developer DAO members raise money for your projects. This is the first of our workshop series on grant-based fundraising. This presentation is going to be recorded and the slide deck will be shared. We're going to be hosting these workshops every Wednesday at 3 p.m. UTC. Today's is going to be an hour. Future workshops might be a little bit shorter, but we'll see what happens. Here's our upcoming series. Next week, we'll be focused on writing a compelling narrative for your project. Then after that, we're going to work on business model canvassing so that you can present a path to sustainability. Grant-based fundraising is great to get started, but grants are not a business model. Grants are not a path to sustainability. So getting a grant is a great way to get started, but then you usually need to show funders your path to sustainability. We'll be helping you with that on the 23rd. On the 30th, we'll be working on budgeting. And on December 7th, we will be practicing elevator pitches. So mark your calendars for this workshop series every Wednesday at 3 p.m. UTC in the same place. We also have office hours every Monday and Friday at 2 p.m. UTC in Developer DAO's Discord voice channel 1. So whatever you're learning today about the components of a grant application, if you're working on a grant and you want to come in and get feedback on your proposal or on your application, come in and workshop it with us, get direct feedback from us on your writing, on your organization, your structure, your storytelling, your budget, whatever you're working on. Would love to see you at our office hours every Monday and Friday, 2 p.m. UTC in voice channel 1. You can also reach us asynchronously via the Fundraising Operators Discord channel. And you can reference the Developer DAO fundraising guide for all things related to grants fundraising. This is what the guide looks like. It's a Notion wiki. You can bookmark it, refer back at any time. And actually, these images are hyperlinks. So when you get the link to this presentation, which Victor is going to share, you can just click through to get to the fundraising guide from here. Okay, so with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about today's workshop. We have two objectives for today. One is to understand the functions of a successful grant application. And two is to understand the features of a successful grant application. We're going to start at a high level, and then we're going to go deeper and deeper down into the nitty-gritty of the features. Please don't hesitate to ask questions. We have quite a bit of content today. I imagine a lot of it might seem pretty nuanced. A lot of it might be new to you. We really would love for this to be interactive. On my other screen here, I can see the chat on YouTube. So if you're posing any questions, we'll be sure to get to them. And Victor, if I miss a question or if I miss a prompt to discuss something with our attendees here today, please jump in and interrupt me. Would love to talk to you all when you have the question. So again, the objectives for today: understand the functions of a successful grant application as well as the features. We're going to start at a high level. So grants fundraising is tricky because it's both an art and a science. When I say it's an art, I say that because skill is required to communicate your project in an attractive way to funders. When I say it's a science, that's because there is a formula that you can follow to increase your odds of success. And so by combining great communication skills with a particular formula that funders are used to seeing, you can write a successful grant application. Let's now talk a bit about the functions of a successful grant application. What is your grant application supposed to do? A great grant application will, number one, convince the funder that you can deliver the desired outcomes. And number two, comfort the funder that you're not going to lose their money or waste their money. So that's really what it boils down to. It needs to be convincing that you can deliver on what you say you're going to do. And it also needs to be comforting that they can trust that when they give you their money, that you're not going to lose or waste it. It seems very simple, but again, there's an art and a science in how you do this in a text-based application. It's really important that you demonstrate these things, that you don't just say them. Like, I can deliver is not how you convince a funder that you're going to deliver. I won't lose your money is not how you communicate to a funder that you're not going to lose their money. You have to show it to them through the application, and that's where the features come in. We're going to spend a lot more time on the features of a grant application than on the functions. It's important to understand, like, what is that grant application supposed to do? Be convincing, be comforting, but the features is really how you demonstrate these things. We'll get into that. A little bit more about the functions. So what you need to be communicating functionally through your grant application. Number one, our values are aligned. Like our project, our team, and your organization, we view the world in the same way. We want the same things. Our values are aligned. We see the challenge and opportunity that you see as well. We recognize that this is a problem. We're working to address it. You also recognize that this is a problem, and you're looking to fund projects that want to address this problem. We know what to do. We have a solution. We have a product or a service or a feature that can address this challenge that you and I both see. You can count on us. We will deliver. We are experienced, trustworthy people. We've done this before. You can count on us. We'll be good stewards of your resources. We're not going to rug you. Here's the proof. Again, these things need to be demonstrated through your grant application. You can't just say our values are aligned. You have to communicate that through your writing that you share their values. You can't just say this explicitly. If you say, like, you know, we won't lose your money, the first thing that someone's going to think is, these people are probably going to lose my money. So you need to communicate this in a more nuanced, artful way, and we'll get into how you do that. Let me pause there and see if we have any questions yet. We covered the functions. We're going to start getting into the features. All right, keep going. So, the components of a great grant application. Number one, you're going to have a problem statement, a solution statement, a team statement. You're going to get into the detail of how your solution works. You're going to provide success metrics. This is how we will know if we've been successful. You're going to present a budget, other supporters, people who have already been supporting your work in the past to validate what you've been doing, background of the project or the history of the project, and then legal and financial information. Now, these last three things you might not always have on a grant application. Depending on how long you've been around, you might not have had other supporters or background, project history. You might not have a legal entity yet. That's okay. Depending on the program that you're applying to, you might not need these things. But 1 through 6, you're probably always going to need. 1 through 3 is basically the introduction of a grant proposal. The problem statement, the solution statement, the team statement. Like, this is the trifecta that hooks funders. If you communicate these three things well, like, this is the art that I was talking about, as well as the science. You can communicate that you see the problem, the solution, and you have the right team. Like, that formula, that's the formula for success right there. You've got them hooked. Now they can't wait to read how your solution works. And then they get into kind of the more housekeeping stuff, like how we measure success, what is the budget. But those first 3 things, which might just be like 1 paragraph, like it could even just be 3 or 4 sentences, problem statement, solution statement, team statement. That's the most critical piece of a grant application. That's how you hook the reader. We'll be spending a lot of time on those things. And actually, like, the next 2 workshops that we have planned are just focused on writing really compelling introductions for grant applications. See a question in the chat from Kempster. Do grant applications typically require video meetings prior to allocation, or are they generally all written? Great question, Kemp. I would say that to get funding, you're going to need to make human contact with the funder at some point. Might not need to be a video meeting, but some sort of phone call or voice chat or Telegram chat. You're going to need to make one-on-one contact with the funder to have, I would say, any probability of success. And you probably want to make that contact before you even apply, just to know that the program is still active, that there's somebody there, that they're still taking applications, and to kind of gauge their interest in what you're working on. It's probably not worth your time to apply to a grant program if you don't have a connection there. But grant proposals are usually written. I mean, there are some more progressive-minded grant programs that are taking video applications, but I think that that's less common, much less common. It's just starting to happen that they'll take video applications. Typically, this is gonna be a written format almost all the time. I see a question from Yash. Hopefully I pronounced your name right. Is it really important to have a team? Can it work like hiring after receiving the grant? Yes, absolutely. When I say team statement, it could just be individual, like your individual track record if you're applying for the grant by yourself. But if you're getting a grant, most of the time you're probably going to need to be working with other people to execute on the project that you're getting grant funding for. So if you don't already have a team in place, then talking about your ability to, like, who's in your network and your ability to bring people together to work on this project probably needs to be mentioned. But again, we'll get into more detail about each of these components in future slides and in future workshops. All right, cool. So this kind of touches on Kemp's question, the formats that grant applications can take. These are all written formats, but there's a lot of different formats, especially with Web3 grants. Could be a web form, a Google form, or a type form. Might be a website application that includes some essay questions, plus you'll need to upload some Word doc or PDF attachments. It might be linked to documentation, linking to a Git page, Gitbook, GitHub, something like that. Might be a slide deck. Might be a discourse forum post. I have seen some Web3 grant programs where the application instructions are post your proposal in our discourse. Actually, Bankless DAO is like that. That's how you get grants from Bankless DAO and a lot of DAOs by posting in their forum. And I've even started to see some grant programs where you post in a Discord channel. So there's a lot of different formats that grant proposals can take in Web3 grant applications, but these are all written. So having those written communication skills is essential for getting grant funding in Web3. And there really is a bias towards English. For whatever reason, all the grant programs I've seen, the websites are in English and they're expecting applications to be written in English. Okay. So wrapping up the high level part of this workshop, just a couple of pro tips. So we listed out what the 9 components of a grant proposal or grant application are. I highly recommend creating a master proposal template. Could look like this. This is just a Google Doc. Master grant application. Here's my problem statement, solution statement, team statement, etc. You can write out this content, bring it to Victor and I in one of our fundraising operators office hours, and we can give you feedback on it, help you make some revisions, some improvements, maybe even pare it down, cut some things out, make it more concise, more streamlined. but we can workshop your master grant application, how you're communicating your project in general. And then you can use this Google Doc for every grant you want to apply to. You just copy paste content out of here, because some applications will be asking you for more information than others. You might not need all 9 of these components in a grant application. And for every application, you're going to want to customize it to that particular funder. So it's great to have a master grant application that you can just pull content from and kind of stay organized and keep it up to date with the latest and greatest about your project and your team. But remember, every single time you apply, you need to customize it to speak the language of the funder that you're applying to. See a question from Tippy. Did you say you'd help us workshop our grant application? Yes, absolutely. That's what we want to do. We have fundraising office hours on Mondays and Fridays at 2 p.m. UTC in Voice Channel 1 in the Developer DAO Discord. We also have a fundraising operators thread in the Discord where you can post drafts of your application, and we can give you feedback asynchronously. This is all on the first slide of the presentation, all the links and everything and the info. And Victor is sharing a link to this presentation so that you have all the information. But yeah, if you're working on an application, Tippy, we'd love to see you in our office hours. We'd love to help you workshop your particular application. And that goes for everybody. We're here to help. We're here to help developers build products and businesses. And, our job right now is helping you with fundraising. Pro tip number 2 is, and this goes to Kemp's question, you got to make a connection before you apply. I think that your probability of success goes up by orders of magnitude by having a connection there, by having someone who can look out for your application, or someone that can tell you, this is specifically what we're looking for right now, or this is how much money we're offering right now, so that you don't ask for too much or too little. It's really, really important to have a connection there. And so this is something that Victor and I are working on a lot right now, is helping make this network of grant funders in Web3 for Developer DAO. So we started this a few weeks ago. We've been averaging 4 or 5 calls a week. So far, this is our list of friends as of Monday. We've had a few more added this week. We have another call right after this workshop. I think 2 more tomorrow. So we're expanding the network of funders that are friendly with Developer DAO. And we really want to help you make connections to these funders. So if hopefully this guide, this Friendly Funders Guide, which we're updating almost every day, adding new funders to the list. If you see something relevant here for what you're working on, please reach out to us and we can make a connection for you to Push Protocol or to States DAO or to the Graph, depending on what you're working on, what that funder is looking for, what they're prioritizing at the moment. We're getting that information, we're adding it into Airtable, and we're here to facilitate those connections for you all. And these are hyperlinks as well. So you can refer to our funders base and Airtable for more information about these grant programs. And this updates will also be shared in the Probably Nothing newsletter every week as we add new funders to our network. Okay. So I see a question, what connections have we established already for DD members? Yeah, this is as of Monday who we've spoken with. Coming soon is meetings that we have scheduled in the next couple of weeks. And I mean, we got to give all the credit to Victor. He's and the marketing and business development team for helping facilitate these connections and helping us set up these meetings. We've had a really good reception so far. I mean, everyone is excited about what's being built in Developer DAO, what you all are building. I think everyone recognizes that developers are the beating heart of Web3. And when there's a grant program they want to distribute the money. They created the grant program to give money to projects, and Developer DAO is seen as one of the best places to invest in Web3 development. So we're in a great position here. The vibes have been awesome, and really, like, the missing piece is we just need to start making connections for projects to these funders. So love to see more of you in our office hours, in our fundraising operators Discord channel, just telling us how we can help you. Okay. I see another question. Is there a difference between applying to grants and applying to venture capital? From Felipe. Yes, big difference. This is actually outlined in our fundraising guide on the Notion page, in our Notion wiki. We go into a lot more detail. We have a T-chart of like all of the similarities and differences between grants fundraising and VC fundraising. But the main thing is that grants fundraising, it's going to be more than one main thing, but one of the main things is that grants fundraising typically doesn't require giving up any equity in your company. So they're giving you a grant and they don't expect ownership in your business in return. VCs almost always do expect ownership in return for the money that they're giving you. On the other hand, VCs might just give you money because they like your team, they like your vision, they say, we support you, build this thing. Whereas grants usually have some strings attached. Like, we will give you money if you, like, take the graph, for instance. We will give you money if you build a subgraph. So it's not just we'll give you money because we like your team and we like what you're doing. We like your team, we like what you're doing, but we're only going to give you money to build a subgraph. So, there's pros and cons to both grant fundraising and VC fundraising. And, you really got to think about what you want, and the costs and benefits and the drawbacks to both. And again, we're happy to talk through that stuff with you. We'd love to be a resource for you if you're trying to figure out, do I want to kickstart my project by trying to raise money from VCs, or could I get a grant? We can help you figure that out. Thanks, Victor, for posting the links. Yeah, Felipe, there's the link to our wiki where you can get more insights about the difference between grants and VC fundraising. All right. So the high level stuff behind us, now we can start digging into the features. And this is all, I know this is a lot of content. It's also a lot of text because I imagine most people will probably, want to refer back to this slide deck or, watch this recording. And so, apologize that this is, just a lot of content coming at you today. Wanted to try to cover everything. And then in future workshops, we'll go much more into the nitty-gritty details and working with you in a more collaborative and interactive way on your problem statement, your solution statement, versus, right now today, it's kind of like just trying to give you all the information. So it's just a lot of me like talking at you, but this isn't the way we prefer to operate. We'd love to work in a more collaborative way with you on your particular use cases and your particular grant application. And Pablo, yeah, I'll get to that. I'm about to get to your question. What's the length of the problem statement? I'm about to cover that in an upcoming slide. But, if you have a grant that you're working on, come check us out in our office hours and we can work on your problem statement, directly. Okay, so this is the formula for introductions to a grant proposal that hook funders. This is how you hook funders. This is the trifecta: problem statement, solution statement, team statement. We see the problem that you see. Here's a viable solution to this problem. We are the right team to solve the problem. That can be your first paragraph, your first slide. Maybe it's a whole page, depending on the situation. But this is the formula for success. This is the science part of it. These three things make your introduction. How you communicate your project is the art, and that's much harder. This is the formula. How to do it well is much more challenging. Yeah, quick note here. Depending on the format, this might be called an introduction. It might be called an executive summary. It might be first slide in a pitch deck. Or if this is a video application, this just might be how you begin your video. So first up is the problem statement. The function of a problem statement, the purpose, is that you show that you share the funder's mission. We both identify the same problem, right? For instance, like Web3 users want privacy, right? We don't want all of our transactions to be publicly available for anybody to see. So, we see the same problem. Now let's get into the art of this, the features. So one really, really simple but beneficial thing you can do is to just copy the language they use on their website. You know, just frame the problem the way that they frame it. Borrow their storytelling, borrow their data, like by validating them, you gain favor with them. And also, why not? Why try to come up with your own conception of the problem when the program that you're asking for money from has already defined the problem? So if you see the same problem that they see, go ahead and borrow their language. And also, you want to be concise. So you got to expect that people working behind these grant programs are reading a lot of applications, and how much time will they spend reading yours? Like, that's why it's so important to hook them and to give them a formula that they're used to seeing. But you don't want to go on and on and on, like you'll lose them. So just as much information as is necessary, and then get on with it. Get on to the solution statement. So for the solution statement, you want to show that you know what could solve the problem. So let's talk about the art of this. How do you do this effectively? You want to be objective. You don't want to say something like, our method reduces spam bots on Twitter. You want to present a technological solution and say, this method reduces spam bots on Twitter. That's better than going directly to you. From the problem statement to the solution statement, you want to maintain objectivity and kind of talk at an ideas level and try to find that common ground with the funder. You still want to be high level. Again, you're still kind of talking in the vision space. You're not getting down into the nitty-gritty details of the components of your solution. Just a high level kind of vision level for the solution statement in your introduction. And again, you want to be concise. And as I'm presenting this, I'm realizing this is really hard for me to communicate in a slide and expect you all to just get it. So again, this is why we have office hours, and this is why in our future workshops we'll be more interactive and kind of looking at your work and giving you feedback on it and helping you workshop it, because this is the kind of thing requires more of a communication, more of a back and forth between us, so that you know that you've got a great solution statement. It's going to be hard to come up with just from looking at this slide. So this is just kind of a welcome to what goes into a grant application. Okay, no new comments yet, so I'll keep going. After the solution statement, we get to the team statement. So the function of the team statement is to show that you have the right team to get stuff done. The features, the art behind this is you want to project confidence. So provide evidence that your team has done this before and you know what you're doing. And to Kay's question, it doesn't have to be a full team. It could just be you, that you've done this before, that you know what you're doing. Again, mirroring is important. Almost all grant programs will be talking about the founders and the teams that they want to invest in. So borrow some of their language, like whatever adjectives they're using to talk about the people that they want to give money to, adopt those adjectives for your team. And again, you want to be concise. You got to flex your team, but use as little space as possible. The more you talk about yourself, the less confident you seem. So, just do the job and then get on with it. All right, don't see any comments, so we'll keep going. Now, we're going into more detail, how the solution works. So we presented a solution statement, which is kind of like a visionary, high level. This is a solution to tackle the problem. Now we're talking in the nitty-gritty details of how our solution works. You need to provide convincing evidence for your solution. Really helps to have visuals. So, in Web3 grant applications, having flow charts or having mockups or having wireframes, really, really helpful, especially when you're talking about software products. But if it's just a mockup, that's going to help your application a lot. If you have documentation, or this could even, I think that this also lends itself well to the team statement. If you can provide links to your GitHub or to other work evidence that you've done, but specifically in the how your solution works. If you've already built the product or service, and you have documentation to back it up, provide links, and again, be concise. That's a major theme through all of this. Get your point across, provide the information that's expected, but you don't need to belabor it. You don't need to write pages and pages. Success metrics is the next component. The function of this, the purpose, is that it sets expectations for what you could accomplish with the money. The features, like the art of presenting success metrics well, includes 3 things. 1, you got to choose success metrics that can be reported, metrics that you can track. So don't include things that you don't have the capacity to track. I'll just leave it there. And keep in mind that this doesn't have to be only numbers. Like, numbers are easier to report, but if you're going to be tracking outcomes that are more qualitative than quantitative, that's fine. That is, more appropriate in a lot of cases. It doesn't have to be only numbers. In my opinion, and this is like a very artful thing, but something I learned a long time ago from actually from a fundraising class that I took in grad school, is the idea of under promising and over delivering. So if you don't set expectations too high, then you have a much better chance of achieving them. When you under promise and over deliver, you get a lot more funding over the long term. So this is tricky, and it's an art, because you don't want to set the bar too low, because then you might not get the first grant, because they might say, well, that's not making enough of an impact to justify the amount of money they're asking for. But you also don't want to set the expectations too high, because then it's gonna be much harder for you to accomplish that. So if you can figure out what are the right success metrics and what are the right expectations to set, kind of at a modest level that you can surpass, then you're setting yourself up for a long-term relationship with this funder and probably multiple grants after this first one. And again, let's be concise. Rule of 3 metrics should be enough for most applications. You don't need to think of every single possible thing you could possibly measure. Just choose 3 that are compelling and achievable, and then again, get on with it. I see a question. Kemp, assume it's better to focus on the metrics that really move the needle, core to success rather than vanity. Should we explain why we've chosen these metrics versus others? Yeah, exactly. What's going to move the needle? And from Dalpreneur, is it beneficial to create an MVP out of mud and sticks? I'm not sure what that means, actually. If you could expand on that. And wants to comment, for most experimental things, there are no numbers to present. Any point to present wide scope numbers for the sake of numbers? I mean, if they ask for success metrics, then yeah, you're going to need to provide some way of knowing if your project has been successful, but it doesn't have to necessarily be numbers. We can talk, we can talk more about that one-on-one, or in office hours about like your particular project and what it would make sense for like how to demonstrate success. But funders, this is unfortunately like it's just part of the game, because they're giving you money and they're not managing you, and so they're not going to see you every day. So you need to tell them, here's how you'll know if we've been successful with the money you gave us. There's kind of like no way around that. MVP, prototype, or slides. I'm not sure what that means. And then from Pablo, how do you choose a dollar amount to ask for? That is a great question, Pablo. And that goes back to why we really recommend that you make a connection with the funder before you apply. That's the kind of thing, it's a very appropriate question to ask. Like, how big of grants are you making right now? And then you talk to them about your project and say, like, based on what we've been talking about, how much would you be willing to invest in this? You should have an idea of how much money they'll give you before you apply. And that's why Victor and I have been making connections with, as many funders as we can so that we can get this information to you. Thanks for all the questions, everybody. Sorry that there's a few questions in there I'm not really sure how to interpret. But if you just want to expand on your question, if I haven't answered it yet, come back to it. So budget, the purpose of the budget is to show that you have a plan for reaching those objectives with the limited financial resources that are available to you. The features of a budget, the art is, it should be pretty standard. Just follow a predictable spreadsheet model, just a two-dimensional table, few columns, a few rows. It's well organized, looks nice on a single page. That's what people expect to see. If they have to, pull out a Rosetta Stone to like decipher how you did your budget, they're probably going to lose confidence in you pretty quickly if you can't put together like a simple spreadsheet budget model. That's something that we can definitely help you with. This is something I actually like doing. I'm kind of weird in that I like working in spreadsheets. So budgeting is not your forte. Come check us out. This is something I'd love to help you with. But this goes back to like, one of the overall functions of the grant application is to provide confidence and also provide comfort. So confidence that you know what you're doing, comfort that you're not going to rug them, and the budget, not only the budget, but how you present the budget is critical, because now we're talking specifically about how you're going to spend the money that they're giving you. And so, this is an opportunity to gain more confidence, or, a risk that you lose what confidence they might have in your project up to this point in the application. So standard, organized, and comprehensive. This is one feature of a grant application where I'm not saying concise. Like the budget, you want to be comprehensive. You want to show that you've thought of everything. Again, if they look at your budget and they think, well, they didn't account for QA in their budget, and we know that QA is going to be a really expensive part of this project. Now they've lost some confidence that you really know what you're doing, and that you'll really be a good steward of their resources. So things like that. Budget is super, super important. Let's see if there's any questions about this. Ask if having a working MVP before you ask for funding is better than not having it. Okay, good question. Thanks, Pablo. It really depends on the grant program. We've talked even this week. Victor and I have talked to a funder who said we're comfortable providing funding at the ideas stage. Like we don't actually have to see a working prototype to provide a grant. And we talked to another funder that said we're only making grants to projects that are more at the seed stage, that already have a working MVP, that have already raised some money from other sources, that they have a team, they have a runway. So it really depends on the grant program. And again, like this just speaks to why you need to make contact with somebody at the grant program before you apply, because yeah, how would you know? Just by like you see a list on Twitter, 600 Web3 grant programs. There's just there's a lot of nuance, and there's a lot of information that you can't get from a website. You get it from talking to people. You tell them how far along you are in your project, and they tell you, oh yeah, we fund projects at that stage, or no, you guys need to get to this next milestone and then come back to us. And again, Victor and I can help facilitate those connections. Yeah, and wants to comment, says, we're builders. We prefer building to writing spreadsheets and slides. Yes, absolutely. You all should be focused on building. Victor and I are here to help you kind of translate what you're building into grant proposals, including budgeting. So Developer DAO has hired us to help you. We want to help devs build projects, build businesses. This is an important thing, but not something that everyone needs to be an expert in. So we're here to help you. Please leverage us. Next thing, now we're getting into the 3 components of a grant application that you might not always be required to present. So other supporters, the function of this is that it shows that other people believe in you and your team. It seeds FOMO among the grant maker, that maybe their competitor product has invested in you, and so if they want the type of feature that you're building to be part of their protocol too, then they're going to need to give some money because their competitor has gotten this feature already, like that kind of thing. So the features, the art of this, so that should be organized. Just a bullet point list should do the trick. Concise, hyperlinked name followed by a brief statement about the support that was made. Just bullet point list, 1 row per supporter should be enough. And then also be intentional. So consider whether it would help or harm your proposal to list a particular past supporter. Say for instance, you got money from 3 Arrows Capital last year. Up to you whether you want to include that. It might help your application, might hurt your application. So you don't just want to go fire hose and talk about every single person that supported you. Your mom, your dad support you. Maybe you don't include that on your grant application. Maybe that's not the message you want to convey. So this is where the art comes in. How you present this information is important. Danza, can we ask for a grant for developing an MVP? Yes, absolutely, 100%. That's probably the best thing to ask for a grant for, is to develop the MVP. As I mentioned at the beginning of this workshop, grants are not a business model. You cannot sustain your business over the long term from grant funding. Don't even think about it. But a grant is a great way to get started. So some seed funding without having to give up equity in your business, some seed funding to get that MVP. And then once you have an MVP, maybe you need 1 more grant to give yourself a runway, but you should have a business model that's now generating revenue in some way. to sustain you over the long run. But yeah, grants, I think the best reason to apply for a grant is to build an MVP. But not all grant programs want to invest in building MVPs. So, you just got to find the ones that align with where you are in your project's development. All right, project history. So along with supporters, this can be optional. It won't always be required, but if it is, the function is to provide some background information about your project. Again, it should be organized, it should be concise, should be intentional. A lot of the same points as, listing your other supporters. So I'm not going to belabor this one. And then legal and financial information. And this one might be kind of sticky. Sticky's not the right word. Might be kind of frictiony for like Web3 companies or like projects that are coming out of DAOs, because like the legal entity might be kind of up in the air, or you might not have one yet, or your team might be, in multiple legal jurisdictions, and you have to figure out like, how do we form a legal entity? What are the regulations? All that stuff. Really hard to navigate that stuff right now for Web3 projects. So that's unfortunate. But it's obviously still possible to get yourself registered somewhere so that you can start accepting funding and enter into contracts. Now, like, not all grant programs will require that you have a legal entity and that you have like audited financial statements. Like some DAOs might be willing to just like transfer you USDC from their wallet to your wallet without seeing your proof of legal entity or your P&L or your tax return or all these other like kind of official documentation. I've seen it happen. And I've more commonly seen a funder want to provide a grant to a project, but they couldn't because the project didn't have a legal entity to be able to enter into a contract. So like, I guess what I'm trying to say is most funders are going to want to sign a contract with you. And if you don't have a legal entity, then, you don't have an entity to enter into that contract with them. So that can be a sticking point. But, it can be a barrier for some grant programs, but not all. That's something, again, like we can talk about in office hours about your particular situation. But something to be aware of, that especially like the more money you want to get, like maybe for a $5,000 grant, you might be able to get away without a legal entity. But for a $50,000 grant, $100,000 grant, they're going to probably want a contract. And there's probably going to be an expectation that they're going into a contract with another legal entity. A P&L, you need to have been in business, for at least a quarter or for a year to even have this information. So if we're talking about getting a grant for an idea or to like build an MVP, then this isn't even going to be relevant because you haven't done any business yet. They'll understand that if you're applying for an early stage grant, they'll understand that you don't have this information. It'll be optional on the application, but if you do have it, it'll help if it helps, tell your story. Same goes for tax return. If you've been around for a while, and that's part of, your project history, then they're going to expect to see this. But if you're brand new and you're looking for an early stage grant, then they'll understand that you don't have a tax return from prior year. See if there's any questions. Nope, no new questions. Okay, this is like the least fun stuff. And I think that's it. We got through all the content. So again, please come to our office hours, 2 p.m. UTC, 9 a.m. Eastern time, every Monday and Friday in Voice Chat 1. You can also hit us up in the Fundraising Operators Discord channel, or just DM us. We have more workshops coming up every Wednesday, same time, same place. We'll be moving into a more interactive format where we'll be looking at your particular instances and helping you workshop what you're working on rather than just me presenting a lot of information at you. All right. Any closing questions? I mean, we have 10 more minutes on the stream. If anybody has any more questions, happy to answer them or chat about anything. And if not, that's fine. We can just wrap up. Thank you all for attending. Great questions today. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Goodbye.